Hi guys, this week I'm going to be reviewing The Archive by Victoria Schwab. I bought this book in order to join in a read-along, which actually happened last week, so I will put a link in the description to that. This was released last year, I believe, and the sequel, which is called The Unbound, was released last month. So the main premise of this story is that the bodies of the dead are kept on shelves in a library like history books, and those bodies are full of the memories and experiences of the people that they once were. On occasion these bodies, or histories as they're known, might wake up and try to get back into the real world, which is also known as the outer. This is where the keepers come in. Keepers are the people that hunt down the woken histories and return them to the archive where they came from. Keepers also have the ability to read objects, which means that they can look into the history of an object and the emotional history that's imprinted on that object, so they can actually see history and look back into the past through just touching an object. This also kind of backfires on them because it means that they can't really touch people without being able to feel the history and emotion within a person. So it leads to a quite alienating lifestyle. So our main protagonist is Mackenzie Bishop. She's 16 and she has been a keeper for 4 years. She's recently moved both home and territory within the Narrows. We also have some fantastic secondary characters who I absolutely adore. Mackenzie's grandfather, who is just known as Dar. He's really insightful and wise and just a very interesting character to have to pit against Mackenzie, and you can see how much she valued him. We also have the Converse wearing librarian Roland. I originally kind of pictured as a Giles from Buffy-esque type character, but after speaking to Scott Place about this, he said he kind of pictured him as David Tennant's Doctor, so now I have this really weird image in my mind of Giles but with the 10th Doctor's mannerisms, which is just bizarre, so thanks for that, Scott. We also have a slightly egotistical goth guy called Wesley Ayers, and he is our predominant love interest throughout this novel. Overall, I thoroughly enjoyed this story. However, the ending for me kind of slowed and lost a bit of steam, but one thing that I was really interested in was that this story and the writing style in general actually took on a topic and handled it very well that I wasn't expecting it to, although now that I think about the premise of the story I kind of feel stupid that I didn't think about it. It actually talks a lot about grief. It also gives a lot of thoughts and ideas about loss and dealing with grief as well. Ben's death has shattered the dynamic of Mackenzie's family, and it's really interesting to see that, and quite saddening as well, because you also don't really see a lot of it, and that's because Mackenzie becomes so busy and wrapped up in her influx of histories breaking out and a lot of different ideas in general that she comes across at her new territory, that she doesn't actually get a lot of time with her family, so you kind of see that grief on the surface, but you know there's more to it that Mackenzie also knows there's more too, but she can't really delve into it because she's so busy herself. Schwab's writing style in this novel is at times tremendously flawless. It is beautiful and wonderfully crafted. She combines fantasy and mystery, which I wasn't actually expecting the mystery aspect of the novel, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. One of the writerly choices that she made, which I absolutely adore, is the fact that she shifted into second person during certain parts of the novel. It was a stream of beautifully crafted narrative that built up the relationship between Mackenzie and her Dar, and it was just wonderful to read that. So as you can see, there was quite a lot here that I absolutely love. From the first page, I was in a frenzy of index markings. Page 1, I don't know if you can see that, but it is, this is the title, this is the first page, and I've already marked something on there. You're standing beside me with a cigarette and an accent full of smoke. twirling your battered ring and telling stories about the archive and the narrows and the outer in calm words, with your Louisiana lilt, like we're talking weather, breakfast, nothing. The accent full of smoke as he's having a cigarette, like having the cigarette completely changes his accent, but she's so used to it because it's like an accent, it's something that he always seems to have, and I just find that really, really interesting and a wonderful use of language. I absolutely loved it. The world building is completely solid and visual, and it's actually quite an interesting premise. I don't feel like this is a bargain bucket idea that's just had a new cover slapped on it and some different cool characters that you can kind of love, who's a little bit witty and a little bit strong. It's actually a really interesting plot in general, and the characters are wonderful on top of that, but the plot itself I find really interesting, the premise and the idea of histories and what happens after you die, and it's not in that sort of preachy way of what happens after you die, but it is quite interesting regardless of that. The only occasion I feel like Schwab's writing style actually faltered was in her dialogue, which I felt could be a lot stronger. Although Mackenzie was a very strong protagonist, I felt like her rapid warming towards certain love interests kind of undermined her character that we'd started to build. She had this calm, rational thinking, keeper-like quality that her Da had raised in her, and she had shown us why he had raised her like that and how he had raised her like that, and I felt like it was quite demeaning to this beautiful relationship that she'd built up. That Schwab had created this wonderful, wonderful relationship that I absolutely loved and was fully invested in between Mackenzie and her grandfather, and then she kind of undermined it with how she was acting towards certain people, and I just felt like that was really unnecessary. It didn't have to be a really quick falling in love with a love interest. I know this tends to happen with YA, and again, yes, a 16-year-old, this tends to happen. You know, you are in love very fast at that age, but I felt like Mackenzie was a lot more mature for her age, and she kind of had to be, and she was raised that way, thus she shouldn't necessarily have fawned over someone so fast. As for love interests, Wesley at times was quite cringy. His arrogant, cool guy, loner attitude felt quite stereotypical and kind of boring at times. He kind of fell flat, so it was difficult because at other times he was such a wonderful character, and I feel like he had the makings of a beautifully well-rounded character that just didn't quite get there at times. For me, the story lost a lot of steam towards the end of the novel. Even though the action was picking up and the pace should have been speeding up, it kind of felt really rushed. I felt like the ending was about 20 pages long rather than, you know, you'd have a few pages of not non-stop action but explanation, and everything seemed to happen really fast, and I just kind of wasn't interested in what was going on after a certain point. So even though it seemed really rushed, it still managed to feel really slow. The narrative lost its wonderful craftsmanship that I fell in love with in the first half of the book. I also felt that because Schwab had created such wonderful minor characters that I absolutely adored, I really wished that they'd had a lot more of a development within their characters, and this is something I'm hoping for in the next novel. So overall, I found this thoroughly entertaining. I think it's a brilliant premise, and the first half of the novel in particular is wonderfully crafted. I still think it's definitely worth a read, and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I think it missed out on 4 just because I kind of compared it to other books that I had given 4 stars to, and more than that, and it just didn't really compete. The language, however, really tempted me into bumping it up and giving it 4 stars, and I feel like if that language had continued throughout the entirety of the novel, it would have easily got 4 stars, probably even surpassed it. So even though I kind of had mixed feelings for this book, I will definitely be buying and reading The Unbound when the hardback cover is a little bit less pricey, because I bought this one in hardback just due to the fact that it's gorgeous, so I want to get The Unbound in hardback as well. Next I'm reading We by Yevgeny Smyatin. I don't even know how to pronounce his name. I know for a fact I just got that horrifically wrong. So I'll see you guys soon with another video, and until then, take care and stay shiny. This week I'm going to be reviewing The Archived by Victoria Schwab. I'm going to be reviewing The Archived by Victoria Schwab. Sounded like I said swab, not Schwab, didn't it?